Hello?
Hello, Jughead. This is Archie. Come over right away. It's a matter of life or death.
Oh, relax, Archie.
Attention, all true believers. Marvel Comics is on the air.
A friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive, impervious to bullets.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It was explained to me once by someone whose opinion I care about that the difference between a nerd and a geek was that a nerd is someone who cares passionately about a topic. A geek is someone who corners you at a party and won't stop talking about that topic. I don't know how true that is, but based on the face Jay just made, I called him out a little too much. So I want to talk about things that we are all nerdy about, right? So often here on the EXP, we corner you at the party and talk to you about comic books until you're like, please talk to us about something else. And then I throw in some Dungeons and Dragons and people are like, wait, what? So today we're going to talk about hobbies outside of comics. And a lot of us don't have any, which is super funny, but it's also an interesting thing to talk about when we talk about fandom, right? So many of us, especially Jay and I, have taken our hobbies and made them our jobs. Like, if you'd have told me when I was 13 years old, someday you're going to own a comic book shop and you're going to run a streaming channel about comic books, I'd have told you, no, I'm not. I'm going to be the guy from Iron Eagle. And then I realized you couldn't be diabetic and blind and have that job. Oh, well. So this is Hobbies Outside of Comics. We're going to talk about things we do that aren't comics, or that aren't YouTube about comics, or that aren't spend all of our time talking about comics. So if you have a hobby outside of comics, throw it in the chat right now, and we will talk about it when we get back. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. What's up, the internet? What's up, John Stout? Say hi when you get here, everybody. I see El Peso Hero over on Instagram, TJ James. There are hobbies outside of comics, TJ, and I'm guessing you have some. Even if they're comics adjacent. And that's the thing, right? Like not the whole point of this is to talk about other things that we nerd out about, right? Everybody has things they nerd out about, whether it be, baking bread, playing video games, El Peso Hero, PC, PS5, and Steam gaming. Right. Now you might be playing Spider-Man on those systems, but that's video gaming. That's a thing other than comics that you nerd out about. Godzilla, like, tell me what you're into other than comics. And so what I wanted to do is I want to include some of our homies, right? Some of our people that you know from the chat, pro wrestling. Okay. El Peso Hero and I might be into a lot of the same stuff. So we're going to keep going over here, man. But I wanted to bring in our homies. I wanted to bring in some people that you know from the chat to talk about what do they do other than talk to us on the internet all the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the Trivia Master, who I'm hoping one of his hobbies is trivia, Eddie Von B.
Hey, everybody.
And the only person who even comes close to me on the experience in terms of Turtles fandom, Mr. Nope.
What's going on, everybody?
Sup, Nope?
What's happening, Eddie?
So this is an interesting concept for a lot of people because so often all we talk about is comic books, right? So let's just start here. Like Peso over here has been giving me his list: Godzilla, video games, pro wrestling. Other people are going to put stuff in the chat, like John Stout. I'm super into Halloween. Like I really do up my yard with animatronics and props. TJ James bakes. I don't know which kind of baking, TJ.
Important here.
So let's start with Mr. Nope. What other hobbies do you have outside of comics? Like what are some things that you use to fill your time when you're not thinking about comic books?
Well, I mean, starting from like the smaller side of things, I like to make beef jerky and stuff. So, I got dehydrator and jerky gun and everything. And sometimes I'll make up to like 5 to 10 pounds at a time.
Please tell me a jerky gun is a gun that you can use to shoot beef jerky into your mouth.
No, it's like a silicone caulking gun, and you basically put it on the tray, and you got different nozzles to, however you want your jerky.
But you
and
could.
Then,
just saying.
I mean, if you want to eat raw meat, sure. But
well, when you see my hobby, you'll realize how much raw meat I actually eat. So
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of cooking. Otherwise, I got a smoker. I got a Blackstone griddle, regular grill. So I do plenty of cooking and everything else, and do that a lot while camping. So do camping a lot. I like to do float trips and everything. I got camping property a little bit further south than I am, and a couple little cabins and campers and stuff like that set up. So we'll go down there and actually throw the kayak on the river, try and set up a float trip where there's little, communities or shuttle systems and stuff that actually take you down to certain points of the river, pull you out down the river. But then I got motorcycles, I tinker with cars. I do all my own stuff with my truck. Anything that goes wrong with it, I'm the one that fixes it. Let's see what else. I do a little bit of woodworking, but not so much because I'm a carpenter by trade. So doing that outside of work is just a pain in my ass half the time. So exactly. And then other than that, that pretty much will sums it up. I did send Jay a few pictures and stuff if anybody wanted to see.
We'll bring them up later.
But
we'll bring them up later. What about you, Ed? Like, what do you do other than the EXP? What do you do other than comics?
My big two other than comics are going to be weather and Halloween. I've been obsessed with weather and Halloween since I was a kid. I became a certified storm chaser when I was 18, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been credited with 187 tornado warnings being issued over my time of doing it. I love it. I don't get to do it as much now that I don't get to go out much anymore, but what I get to do now is I get when there's a big breakout, I get to pull up the software and I'll get to navigate teams. So I'll tell them where to go, tell them where the storms are, tell them the best way to go, make sure they're safe, stuff like that. So I'm obsessed with the weather. And Halloween is just in my brain 365 days a year. I love Halloween. Anything about it. The minute Halloween's over, I start planning how I'm going to decorate next year. If I see something Halloween, I buy it. If I can draw something Halloween, I draw it. I made a bunch of porcelain Halloween things. I did ceramics and baked it and painted it. Did a lot of those. Had a lot of Halloween stuff. But I also love D&D. And when I was younger, I was obsessed with wrestling. I mean, the Attitude Era, that's all I ever talked about was wrestling when I was in college.
But that was the thing I didn't send Jay, is I should have sent him some wrestling pictures.
There you go.
Oh, well. Jay, what about you, man? Do you have anything that isn't comic books and YouTube, man?
Surprisingly, not many, but uh, video games. Certain franchise called Gears of War. That's my. It's kind of adjacent though because there are comic books for it, but there's books, there's all kinds of stuff we own as much. It's one of those worlds that I am that nerd and that geek that will stop you. Not that I go to parties, but I would stop you, and if you mention Gears of War or a character from there, I'll talk to you till you're sick of the game, no matter how much you love it. Like Gears of War is like superheroes to me at the same time. Like I can talk you in wrestling, older wrestling. I haven't watched too much newer stuff, but older wrestling, dude. I remember getting in trouble for having my do it in the doghouse road dog shirt in high school. Like trust me, old school, old wrestling like that, all about it. Outside of that, I collect figures, uh, superhero figures. Obviously, that's my adjacent thing. We have so many figures, and not too much on toys, but just like pops and things like that, and statues. Um, I also got really big lately into collecting still comic books, but uh, hockey sweaters and baseball tees and stuff like that. Like, got into that recently. So, is this the first appearance of Top of Jay's head?
No.
Oh, I'm growing my hair out for Superman.
So it's interesting because I mentioned at the top of the show, being a nerd is caring about something passionately. Being a geek is being that person who corners someone in in the corner at a party and won't stop talking to them about a topic. Does peeling the lint away from the dryer screen count as a hobby? That's a pastime Triple B told me. We'll have to ask him about it if he comes because we invited him. No, so for me, I have been a sports nerd since I was a little kid. I played a lot of sports, baseball, football, basketball. I wrestled. I was on the track team. So I love sports. So one of my hobbies is fantasy sports and degenerate gambling. I love betting on sports, but I don't have money to bet money. So my favorite thing to do is to play fantasy football or to play, other sorts of games with people for bragging rights or for humiliation or whatever. In fact, I'm actually in a league and it's comics adjacent run by Tom Hutchison from Big Dog Inc. with a bunch of other comic book people. Dan Wickline is usually in it, and myself and a couple of guys from Cherry Capital Comic Con, and a bunch of comic creators and a bunch of fans, and like we play fantasy football, and it's super, super crazy scoring and super competitive. So like fantasy football is one of mine. The other thing I'm really into, and it's adjacent to comics, right? I'm a literary nut. I love books. I have a massive library of books on top of my massive library of comic books. So I have a lot of interests in terms of I collect first editions or rare old editions. I collect unique printings of books, things like that. And to the point where now I work with a couple of literary organizations. But I still collect, and that's a non-comic thing. And then Nope kind of mentioned it, and I've talked about it on the experience before. I am a competition barbecue chef, competition barbecue cook. I'm on a competition barbecue team. So again, these are all things that are very nerdy. They're things that we care about with a great passion. And so one of the things I want to ask everybody as we kind of work through what it is to have a hobby other than comics is this idea of what about it? What about your individual hobbies? Eddie, what about storm chasing? Jay, what about certain video games like Gears? Nope. What about your motorcycle and mechanics, being a mechanic and tinkering kind of with that stuff drew you to it? Is it a similar thing that drew you to comics?
Who's going first?
So not exactly, but kind of at the same time. So I cannot remember the first time I read a comic book. I know I was very young because that's what helped me learn to read. It was a family member or a friend of the family, something like that, that showed me a comic. But I had actually seen or been shown Superman 78 when I was a kid, like way before I knew about comics. And through that, my love of Superman, that got me into comics. Now, when it comes to Gears, it's a story where I wasn't into those games. I was into superhero games. I was into wrestling games. Those are kind of the two things that I played when I played. I had a buddy who had just gotten an Xbox 360. Like that's back when they were like, "Ooh, holy crap, look at this thing." And he decided one night, we're going to go to Walmart because our Walmarts used to be 24 hours here, and look through the cheap games. And he found this game with a dude holding a chainsaw gun on the cover. Me, I wanted a game called Facebreaker. It was a boxing game. So I kind of like sports games too. He ended up getting that game. He was playing it, and I just watched him, right? It was just, like I said, it wasn't my thing. And he goes, "Hey man, I got to hit the head. Will you just play? I'll show you the buttons and everything." I said, "Sure, whatever." The first time I revved up this chainsaw gun and cut through an enemy, I was hooked on the game. And I'm very obsessive about things that I like. So I found out everything I could about this universe. When I found out there was books, I went and bought books. When I found out, hey, they make comics for this, dude, I was all over it. I got all the comics collected. Like I became obsessed with this universe. This is my thing where if I never got into comic books, this game is what it'd be all about. It would just be this game. Like I obsess over it, and I will. Doesn't matter how big of a fan somebody is. I really think I'm the kid that can get you to not like it anymore. That's how much I love it.
Ed, how about you, man? What was it about storm chasing and weather and meteorology that hooked you?
It was actually that was my mother because she was scared to death of storms. She would come and grab us out of bed when I was 3 and 4 years old and rush us downstairs and throw blankets over our head if it would thunder outside. And I didn't understand what she was so scared of. So I was petrified. So it drove me to learn about them. And at the same time, Dad would be out looking out in the front yard, and it just always fascinated me. So the more I learned about it, I got hooked on it, and then I was writing reports on it. And by the time I got to high school, my senior year, for my senior science project, I was the school weather reporter. I had built all of my own instruments. I had my own barometer and all that stuff, and I would give weather reports. And I was just hooked. And I always thought I was going to be a weatherman when I got older, but there wasn't any money in it because I lost my dad when I was a kid, so I had to start working, and that's how I got into computers to pay the bills. But I've been obsessed with weather ever since. And as soon as I was able to get certified, I went and got certified. I've spoken at some of the weather conventions, and if you get me started talking about weather, I can go all day long. I mean, I can tell you how thunderstorms form, how they rise, how they anvil, why they anvil, the downdraft, the influx, the hail shaft, everything. I just love everything about it. And I'm never happier than when I'm on a storm chase, as long as nobody's getting hurt. If something happens and something hits, I always stop because I can do the damage surveys. So I'll write up a report for them, see that it was a tornado, certifying it and all that stuff, and making sure everybody's okay. But I'm obsessed with weather. I always have been.
How
And it
about
was
you,
because
Nope?
my mom's fear.
How about you, Nope? What made you want to start tinkering with cars and that kind of stuff?
It started with my dad. I mean, there was always a vehicle in the driveway, usually, muscle cars and stuff like that, because he had Chevelles, and this guy's had probably 20 or so Novas, from all different year ranges and everything else. And I was just always around and always in the garage whenever he was working on them, as little as 1 or 2 years old. Whenever I got my fingers caught in the bumper while they were trying to adjust it, and that was the first time I got stitches. So, but it started off with paper towel and black tape, classic Band-Aid, job site work Band-Aid. So ever since then, watching him work on everything, he expected me to work on stuff whenever I started to get vehicles. So naturally, I had to learn all that stuff the hard way with the busted knuckles and, hitting the side of the car with the jack handle because you can't get the serpentine belt on there. And working on cars naturally has its frustrations, but whenever things are going right, like, which isn't even half the time really with restoring old stuff, but it can be relaxing, to sit there and take something apart, figure out what's wrong, put it back together, and actually hear it run for the first time sometimes, or, never. And then you get rid of it. But yeah, I got that motorcycle, I guess about, I guess it was about 5 years ago. And, Dad had motorcycles, couple here and there. It was a later thing. It was more cars up until later on. And then he got the motorcycle, and then naturally I wanted one, got one. It wasn't running, but got it for cheap. Threw way too much money into it, but now it's actually drivable, but not street legal yet. But, I digress.
We'll get to that in a second here, Round Guy.
Yeah,
We've got some pictures. But I kind of want to set the stage for this idea, right? And the idea is that we as comic book nerds tend to make comic books such a huge part of our personalities that when people find out you're into comic books, they just assume that you're somebody who goes to Comic-Con and sleeps out all night before the panels. And, I've been accused of living in my mother's basement and all of these things that are associated with comic books. And the idea is that we as comic book fans are much more than just that, right? That there are things that we do that are divergent in a big way, right, from our comic book fandom. And again, so much of it is 1 degree separation, right? It's, Nope painting his gas tank to look like a Ninja Turtle or something, or it's, it's Ed, reading the comic book version of Twister, or it's, it's Jay buying the Gears of War, graphic novels. Like it's 1 degree separation sometimes, and sometimes it's more. But like I talked about fantasy football early on, I play with other comic book people, so our team names are usually pretty stupid. But at the same time, we're able to use the same passion we have for comic books. Okay, let me ask this question. As a comic book collector, I have several apps where I track my collection, one where I track value, one where I track inventory, one where I track in and out. Many different apps and tools that I use for keeping my collection. Well, that has rolled over into my hobbies, right? I have many different apps for fantasy football. You should see my barbecue spreadsheets. Like it's some Stephen Hawking of meat kind of stuff. Like, and Jay has seen me at PoFest, right? Which is one of my literary things, where it is very much run like I run the experience, or run like I run my comic book collection. So what tools or what things, what parts of your comic book fandom bleed into your other hobbies, and what parts of your other hobbies have bled into your comic book fandom, and how are they related? I know that's a harder question. So I'll go first. When I first started collecting comics, there was no app for your collection, right? You couldn't track everything in, CLZ Overstreet Access or one of those. So I had to build an Excel spreadsheet. And it was colossal. I mean, these are in the days before cell phones had that kind of storage, right? So I had a 2-inch binder printed out of my comic book collection. Well, now you get in the barbecue trailer and I've got a 2-inch binder of timelines, recipes, measurements, all of this kind of stuff, right? And it's all laid out in Excel, right? It's the thing that I invented for collecting comic books. I have taken over to barbecue and used it to keep my barbecue stuff straight. When it comes to fantasy football, again, it's the math of it all, right? It's understanding what the stats mean and how you get the stats and how you calculate the stats. And so being able to watch a game and know, oh, hey, I got points there, right? That kind of thing. And then again, for the literary stuff, it really is this idea of I fell in love with art because of comic books. And so when I do graphic design for the literary stuff, it's, because I learned to do that because of comic books. When we talk about, the very intricate stories of these people's pasts, well, okay, if you can keep all the different stupid Spider-Man iterations in your head, you can definitely figure out, which books Charles Dickens wrote, because there's a lot less of them. So that's kind of my example. Oh man, we got another person here. We're gonna bring him on. It's about to get loud, everybody. So turn your headphones down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Triple B. And he's muted.
That's hilarious.
There it is. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it, bro.
Yeah, well, I had to mute it. I had to mute it at the end of my show because I had the mic coming in. So, but what's going down? I'm so glad to be back in the experience, the EXP, man. How you guys doing tonight?
Awesome. So we're talking about hobbies outside of comics. So,
right.
we talked about Ed being a storm chaser, and Nope has a bunch of hobbies that are not dissimilar to mine, except he likes to wrench on things, and my hands don't get dirty unless you pay me. And Jay playing Gears. So, Triple B, what are your hobbies outside of comics and YouTubing about comics?
Well, before I had babies and 2 wonderful girls that are 6 and 9 right now, snowboarding was a huge thing because I live in Salt Lake City. So big time snowboarder, but I haven't been able to do it in a long time. You get older, your back kind of goes out a little bit on you. You know what I mean? But I was a huge time snowboarder and bowling, dude. Huge time bowler. I'm a pretty damn good bowler, but I haven't been able to bowl in a while. So, but those were like my major hobbies. But now I guess it would be kind of like what you, Kyle, I'm like barbecuing. Barbecuing is always fun. Summertime. So, but yeah, barbecuing and then like really just anything that my girls are doing in school or like being able to take them out to go do something fun. That's kind of like my new hobby is being a dad.
That can be a fun hobby because like, at that age, like you can go to like the fun play, like what is that? The jump parks and trampoline things.
Yeah, it is.
All kinds of crazy
Big slides.
It's weird when you're a single dude in your late 30s just showing up to those places. Like they don't. Plus, you can go see all the dope animated movies. That it's like, why is there this old guy with a beard sitting in the back corner of this children's animated movie? Right?
Exactly. No one knew that. But yeah, like then we'll do I want to go out. I take my wife out to dinner like once a week, and then twice a month we'll take the girls with us. So we'll try to we'll go to a good place for me and my wife, and then a couple nights out of the week or out of the month, take the girls out, show them what a restaurant is, and they're like, "What is going on here?" Like, someone's coming to ask you what you want, and you order from this menu. So it's cool, Kind of like, but yeah, like mainly my hobby now though is YouTube and trying to make content.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we talk about how so much of what we're into is 1 degree off from our comic book hobbies, right? They're close.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I was asking before is, what do you bring from one to the other, right? What did you learn from your hobby that you bring to comic book collecting? And what did you learn from comic book collecting that you bring to your hobby? So nobody else has answered. I was rambling. So everybody else, take your time, have at it.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I could say that the way I collect kind of helps me with my job. Before I had apps or anything like that or internet, I had a computer before I ever had internet. Um, I would upload pictures from whatever I took, like my digital camera. I would take digital shots of my covers to put in to see which covers I had. And what that translated to is for the EXP, I have every show has a folder in my drive. Every one of those folders has subfolders. Like I save everything. I shouldn't. There should be some stuff that I need to empty out every once in a while. I got like 8 billion pictures, but it helped me organize when it came to work. And then bouncing off of that, what I've learned from Kyle and from JD on the experience, I've used that to be able to do my own lives. Like I couldn't have done that before. Like learning that stuff from there. So it all kind of like builds up, you know. I learned the organization from comics. The organization helped me with my job. My job helped me do something else that I love on YouTube. So it's weird to think of that because I just remember doing that. It's like, you know, I save everything. Anytime I make something, like in whatever program I'm using, I save everything. I don't care if it looks perfect. I love it. It doesn't need any more work on it. I always save the file because something in my brain will eventually go like, well, maybe let me look at it again. So like comics has made me obsessive to that point where I got to know, you know, do I have this cover? Now the apps are great. I just went through not that long ago scanning in our collection. Now, granted, most of them can't be scanned in, but it's weird that comics help me organize because I could never other than comics, I could never organize anything as a kid. Like that was it. Comics was the only thing I could organize.
I get that, man. I would pretty much when my comic organization, like when I saved all of these books that I've had when I bought them off newsstands when I was a kid, and I had them in I had them in boxes that I just kept at my mom's house, and when they just stayed there forever, and then even when I had my own place and stuff like that, they were still there. But when I got married and stuff, and like kind of like had my own house and settled in, you know, I brought them all to me. I'm like, oh man, I need to buy new boxes. And so I bought new boxes. I'm like, oh, I need to buy new bags and boards. And that's what started my like love. Like it reestablished the love that I had for them. It made me feel like a kid. And so like I got an app. I won't say name of the app, but that app I was able to scan all my books in, and that's how I got them all in order. And then like, oh, then you can like get a value on these. And like I remember, I don't know about you as a kid, like Wizard magazine and stuff, looking at the prices. Oh my God, this book is worth this much money, or this is worth this much money. And it started like with baseball cards too, you know, like, oh man, I have all these baseball cards. I'm going to be a millionaire when I grow up. And then I have
Collecting
boxes. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's kind of like how I kind of like started organizing my books and then now it's just like it went into a whole like it went 100%. Like I've gone crazy on it. Like I looked at my app. I mean, I know a lot of people have a lot of books, but like I got like what 3,600 books. And I was like, man, I started out as a kid maybe having like 400 or something like that, and then now I'm like at 36. So I'm like constantly buying like bags and boards because I buy the books off the experience. They don't come with bags or off the, you know, the show on with Rex and them, the 10 packs. I'm like, oh, they say they are reader sets, but a lot of them come in really good condition. And for me, I can't have them just like not in a bag and board. I got to buy bags and boards for them. Next thing I know, I got to buy boxes. And then so Yeah. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I went and bought like 3 short boxes and a long box, and it was like $60 or something for them, 50 or $60. I bought 300 bags and boards because I had a bunch of them not bagged and board. So like I've been doing a lot of organization, and like I want to put them all together in order. And I don't know, that's fun to me. That's just super fun to me. Like to have like I have all these runs, and I have like multiple issues of these runs, but they're different covers. So it's like, oh, what can I do with these books now? You know, I want to keep maybe the coolest covers that I like and keep the complete run of them. And maybe I can like sell them off, or I can give them away, something like that, because like it takes a lot of time and effort to organize all these books. And like, I mean, and all these different titles. I don't know. It's just fun to me. Like, I think that's a major hobby of mine, is just collecting comic books. I know that we're talking, what do you do outside of comic books? But that is like a major hobby of mine.
So somebody in the chat has the coolest hobby outside of comic books. It's this person. If you don't follow them on social media, you wouldn't know. But this person's hobby is going to really expensive steakhouses.
Yes.
And eating bacon at them. Like, I'll be honest, I live vicariously a lot of days through Nick's dinner excursions. Just throwing that out there. That is one of the coolest hobbies, is eating steak. So, guys, does anybody else have kind of any examples of things they brought from their outside of comics hobbies into comics, and inside of comics hobbies to outside of comics?
Whenever I was going on a long chase, I always brought comics with me. So I became the running joke pretty quick on the chase teams when we'd assemble, especially if you were going to be chasing out in the alley. And it got to the point where they would ask me constantly, is your spidey sense tingling? Because I would be looking for the storms to chase. I'd be like, yes, my spider sense is tingling. Let's head north, webheads, and stuff like that. That's the closest I can come to tying them in. And when things were quiet, I was always in the back of the van reading comics. And but the Halloween hobby, it's a lot easier to tie it into, because I'm obsessed with getting every Halloween comic I can find, and everything that I read that's Halloween related makes me happy. And that's because of my love for horror and Halloween. And I even ran a free Halloween haunted house for our local fire department. It was a free one where they do safe trick or treat. And that's where I got the name Ed Weird from. That was my character name for the house. And I was always getting ideas out of my comic books for that, of different things for scares and stuff right out of the horror comics. And, you know, something fun, something safe that kids don't get too scared, but give them a little fright.
Now, Eddie, would you like, when you say Halloween comic books, would you say like this, any type of, you know, scary book, or would you talk about like Michael Myers books?
I'm talking about, it has to be Halloween related. I love horror comics, but when I say Halloween comics, it's got to be, I can do an Archie Halloween show. I love them. I collect those. The Michael Myers, yeah, I got all those, of course. I love those things. But in Halloween, when I say Halloween, it's actually Halloween. I'm not just talking horror.
Theme. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's Halloween related. And what I got to ask Nope is, how do you, if you work on cars and motorcycles, how do you keep those luscious locks from getting all oil and grease? You got a hairnet?
Headband, ponytail, sock hat. You know, it just depends. But sometimes I'll throw it up in the man bun. That keeps it out of my face. But
please send a picture of a man bun.
As a person who has never had that problem, like, I don't know what that's like, man.
I can relate, Kyle.
I don't know what that's like. I don't have. Now, I will say this: having a beard and doing barbecue is dangerous.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah, like burning your eyebrows off.
Well, I'm not even worried about that, man. Like, because we use smokers, so it's like, it's not like I'm dealing with like propane or big fireball or whatever. But like, we're cooking. We have a competition this weekend, and so like this afternoon, I did a practice cook of my chicken for dinner tonight. Well, then I realized, oh no, I have to be on the air later, as I've got like clumps of barbecue sauce in my beard, you know, and I'm like, oh no. So like I had to real quick like shampoo my beard under the sink before I left the house. You know, like it's a dangerous thing to have this facial hair configuration and cook barbecue. So and we'll come back around to some of this, but Nope sent us some pictures and I sent Jay some pictures. And so I figured we could show the pictures. So that's Nope's bike.
When I first got it.
Tell us what it is. Tell us about the bike.
It's a Honda CB 750K. Originally when I bought it, it was like that, pretty much stock, just missing the seat. The guy was actually using it in shop. He had mounted it onto like an office chair base, and he's like, well, it'll be extra if you get the seat. I'm like, I don't even need it. I'm going with a different one. So save money on that. And then, yeah, took it home and started disassembling it, and literally took almost all of the body trim off of there and just kind of stripped it down and repainted a lot of stuff and polished up some of the chrome on it and added some emblems and changed the carburetors, eliminated the air boxes, relocated batteries, and upgraded the lights and stuff, but still working on the electrical stuff just because converted everything to LEDs. So there's a lot of like shorts, and I've added resistors and everything, but still trying to educate myself on wiring and all that jazz. So
what year is it? Nope.
78.
All right. Holy shit, the year I was born.
Yep, and it's probably got all the original miles on it.
So that's cool. So what is
this was a picture frame that I made. So that's all stained wood, and then I did all wood burning, and it's basically a map of Venice. So there was a day that whenever we went on our trip to Italy, one day we went to a Comic-Con, and then another day we went to Venice, and then yada yada, bunch of different places. But on this day, we wound up getting into a fight, and this was just something that I made for my mom, because we separated from our family group that we had that day because there was a big fight, argument, and everything. My mom went off on her own. I was like, fuck, I'm not letting my mom go off on a trip in a different country by herself. So I followed her, caught up with her, and then it was just us walking around the whole day. And we wound up getting lost before the end of the day. Sun was going down. We're like, we got to get back to the parking garage. And then so I basically kind of traced our footpath, kind of went back and went over a map and then matched landmarks and stuff. So this was a Christmas present for her, like that Christmas of that same year. So
all those little footsteps are burnt in there?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
Very nice.
Right, and then
this is my kayak. Yep. The raft.
Not shocking.
Love that name.
Yep. So I take that on the river down there, not too far. We did a 15 mile in one day last year, and I eventually want to do one where you actually go for a couple days and camp out on the beach, and then pick up, start over the next day, and just keep on going. But I mean, that would probably be a bit. You got to figure out where to plan that. Lots of planning for all that, just because don't want to be going through places where you're not supposed to or whatever. But
did you paint that?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. Sketched it all on there and painted it up with enamel pens. So
hey, Castle over on Instagram.
And I just got to touch up the front teeth from whenever he slides into the bank. All the rocks scraping it off. So
is it hard to paddle with size?
With what?
The size. Never mind.
All right. And so then I sent Jay, that's my smoker.
That's a nice one.
That is an Outlaw offset stick burner smoker, made in Indiana. Insulated fire. Like, I could talk all day about barbecue smokers, but that's my smoker.
You said stick.
Yeah, it's an offset stick burner. We switching to hickory this year from peach. because hickory is more available around here, which is weird because we don't have hickory in this part of the world.
Man,
But
hickory's delicious.
for whatever reason, we can get it and we can't get freaking peach. So we'll figure that out. These are chicken thighs. So these were our World Food Championships entry chicken thighs last year. These were our World Food Championships ribs.
Glad I ate already.
This was pork. So that's a money muscle, and then some. It's actually tubes on the side there, and some cubed money muscle, which is a part of the pork shoulder. Brisket. These were some wings I did a couple weeks ago. Some ribs I did a couple weeks ago. These were the wings from tonight. So then I produced the International Edgar Allan Poe Festival. And I'm in a real stupid fantasy football league where I was J.J. McCarthy's meniscus last year, which is a reference to a quarterback who got hurt before the season started.
Yeah.
And the person I'm playing, you can't really see it in this picture. I wish it was better. Is one of the artists for Big Dog Inc. So that's the pictures. Not everybody sent pictures, so like no big deal. But I'm sure Ed has some dope pictures of some tornadoes and stuff somewhere.
I've got calendars that have actually got published. I wish I'd have known you wanted pictures. I'd just sent you some.
Yeah, I was going to say to everybody's, to their credit, I didn't ask for pictures. Nope had just sent some, so I was like, cool, I'll put them on here.
I gotta ask you though, Kyle. Does the type of wood that you use in the smoker really matter? Do you have a preferred? What's your preferred?
The answer is I prefer what I can get cheap.
Fair enough.
And you know, because you're not far from me. Sometimes getting wood in this part of the world is tough because we have only a couple of kinds of fruit trees. You can get cherry and apple pretty regular, but to get any of the spicier woods is hard to get. So you got to get them from someplace.
Now, do you make your coals only out of wood, or do you have like coals and then throw like chunks in it?
So we do a mix of things, but let me finish answering Nope's question, or not Nope's question, Eddie's question.
Sorry,
no, you're good, man. So we're using hickory right now. I like hickory a lot. It burns a little hotter, a little longer. So when we were burning peach, you had to put a new split on every 15 or so minutes. When we're burning hickory, you can go 20, 25 minutes, which isn't a lot of time, but it's totally enough time to play a couple of games of Marvel Snap on my phone or finish making a thumbnail for a show because I'm working at a contest. So that's, that little difference is huge. And then the flavor really does matter. Apple and cherry are very sweet woods, so they make your meat sweeter. Whereas hickory has a lot more charcoal flavor, a lot more smoke. It's a more dense flavor. So it creates a much stronger barbecue flavor. Yeah. When you use a sweeter wood, you've got to use more spice and more things in your rubs and sauces to get the barbecue flavor. And so sometimes it's harder to get right. To answer Triple B's question, we are, because we're burning splits, we don't use chunk charcoal or lump charcoal anymore. We did when we had the Deep South gravity fed smoker, which is what we had before this one, which was one where you had a giant stack or you just fill it with charcoal. And as the charcoal burned, it would just feed itself and you didn't have to worry about it. But on this one, because we're burning wood, we start with charcoal briquettes, just whatever to get the fire going. And then we use a natural product called a char log. That we put in to maintain the heat. So, and the thing about competition cooking, right, is very different than what like maybe you guys are doing in your backyard, right? You guys might cook, 8 or 10 hours on a brisket or something. We're cooking it in 4. We're cooking hot and fast, but we're also cooking we're also cooking 8 bites at most. Like, I'm going to put 10 wings in the box on Saturday and 2 of them are going to get thrown away probably. Like, that's just the way it goes. You're trying to cook perfect single bites of barbecue rather than barbecue for people to eat. So it's a very different sort of chemistry, right?
What did you
Yeah.
mean by spicier woods? You got me curious on that. You said spicier woods. Does woods add spice?
Not necessarily, but like what I mean
Bite?
is, yeah, bite, like the smoky bite.
Oh, okay.
If
Gotcha.
you have a sweeter smoke, right? Like when you go to a bonfire and you throw pine in it, like just, whatever branches from a tree
Mhm.
or maple branches, that when that smoke hits you in the face, it doesn't like, make you want to throw up. Hickory wood. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's like it's just a different chemical makeup of the wood. So when the smoke flavor isn't a sweeter flavor. You have to add spice to your rubs and your seasonings to counteract the sweeter wood. Whereas with hickory, you can kind of go with a little blander thing and then use your rubs and your sauces a little more conservatively. So that's
Whenever I would cook with like hickory, my wife, she doesn't like it. It's too much of a smoke flavor. I throw a little when I do the apple, it's more of like the sweeter type. So she doesn't mind the apple, but me, I love the hickory. So I got to compromise for the family. So I'll throw more of
one of the
the apple
things
in.
that we do because we have another smoker that's a Weber Smoky Mountain. It's like a drum. Is instead of putting full splits, we'll cut them into small chunks, and we'll do like half hickory.
Yeah.
So it's
Get the best of both flavors there.
Mhm.
I would do that too because I would have hickory. I would just do chunks, so I would have but like my barbecue is for everybody to eat, not competition. So, but yeah, we would. I like to mix it a little bit up. I just have a little Weber kettle. My brother, he's one that is a big time smoker. I think we got it from my dad. His birthday was just 2 days ago. He turned 68. So yeah, we got it from him. And my brother's really big on barbecuing, but not. He tries to be all professional, but he doesn't do any of the competitions or anything like that. So I kind of I'll call him up. Hey man, I got a pork butt. What do you recommend? And kind of pick his brain, and it's just fun because what I like to do on the weekends on Saturday or Sunday is, I want to cook something for 8 hours. I want to slow cook this pork butt, and I'm going to throw out I got a Bluetooth speaker with 2 12s on it, throw it in the backyard, play country music, like real country music, not that BS that's on the music I'm talking country music from down where Jay lives, and then we'll just listen to music all day long, drink beer and just have a good old time. And that's what, and with Salt Lake, I can't do that in the wintertime. And we're starting getting into that season where it's starting to be barbecue season. So
yeah,
it's
no,
on, man.
we have, so what's interesting is, here in Ohio is not that dissimilar from Salt Lake in terms of it gets cold.
Yeah.
But we're to the point now where we built a second garage with a heater in it so that we can barbecue year round. It's dumb. It's real dumb when it's 4 degrees outside and you're like, I gotta go turn the brisket. So this is Round Guy's chicken. Nice chicken there, Round Guy.
Spicy chicken. Ooh.
Whole
That's
chicken.
a ton of seasoning on there. I bet it was very flavorful. Like that a lot. Okay. So we talked about barbecue for a few minutes, which is fun. I always enjoy that. If you could, how do I want to ask this question? It doesn't sound dumb. If you could pick up any hobby and it wouldn't interfere with your comic book hobby and it wouldn't interfere with the things you already enjoy, what would it be?
It would probably be some of the stuff my dad tried. God rest his soul. My dad tried to get me into things. My dad tried to make me a mechanic because my dad was a field machinist. They don't really have that job title around anymore, but my dad did all kinds of things. Man never stayed in the house unless it was to watch a NASCAR race, and even then, most of the time he was out in the garage doing something. My dad tried to get me to fish. I didn't have the patience for it. I still don't. For some reason, fishing is just not a thing for me. And hunting, I'm gonna tell my hunting story for y'all. This it's kind of a sad story, but at the same time, it's a great memory. So, my dad, my grandfather, and my cousin went hunting. Now, I'm afraid of heights. First thing my dad does is he puts me in like a 20-foot tall blind, one that has a little bitty ladder like this to get up into it. You sit in a swivel chair, it's got netting around it, and I had like a 30-06. Now, my dad, always a gun guy, collected guns, always taught me how to be safe with guns. Guns always loaded was always the rule in our house. Well, I'm up there, and I'm sitting there, and once again, my ADD brain, my ADHD brain, my body might not move a million miles a minute, but my brain does. So I'm sitting there lost in my own thoughts, and I hear something behind me. So I go to turn, and the top side of the gun gets caught in the netting, and I'm wearing felt tip gloves. My finger slips off the trigger guard and tap. Now the safety was still on. Okay. Taps that trigger, and I blow a hole in the side of this freaking blind I'm sitting in. My cousin, my grandpa, my dad, they all thought that I got something. This would have been my first get. I'd never shot anything except for that damn tripod. So I tell my dad, is like, Dad, safety's on. I don't know what's going on. So my dad unloads it, holding the gun out in front of him, has safety on. He goes, huh. My dad had already checked it, but now for some reason the trigger the safety wasn't working on it. So my dad also had like the driest sense of humor of anybody I've ever met. So the first thing he says to me is, well, I'm glad you're not dumb enough to stare down the barrel, because your mom would have never let me come home. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And as he's walking away, and I got to say this word for word, he walks away. He goes, scared the shit out of you, didn't it, boy? Not even looking at me, he just turns his head. Like I said, that it's a great memory. Unfortunately, my grandfather, my cousin, my dad are all gone, but that was my foray into hunting. And then after that, I told my dad, I was like, look, I shot the tripod. I think I'm good. But it'd be some of those that my dad was into.
Did you have a tripod license?
No, it was illegal. It was an
Or a tag.
Was it a 3-spoke? Sorry, Jay. I got to be me, brother.
That's good, man. That is good.
That's a good joke. That's a great joke, even. What about you, Ed?
I forgot what we're talking about. What are we talking about?
Is there if you could pick up any hobby and it wouldn't interfere with the things you're already into, what would it be?
Oh man, if my hands still work, I'd love to get back on the guitar and into martial arts, because I was big into those when I was younger, and I miss that. But I got carpal tunnel from work, and I can't feel my hands anymore, so I can't play guitar. And it's really hard to do martial arts when your hands don't work right. I would love to get back into those two things. I miss those so much. That and golf.
Nope.
Yeah, I think I'd like to try golf eventually. I always love going to a driving range and, mini golf, but that's just
it's addicting. It really is.
I'm sure, because it seems like it's little effort, but I know there's a lot of technicalities that go into that.
A lot of swearing too.
Oh yeah, sure, but no shortage of that.
Not all drinking and cart girls.
Right. Now, I would like to get back into I used to do paintball a lot, but then I messed up my knee at work, and it just kind of deteriorated from there, as how many times I was actually going, because I can play still, but, by the end of the day, my knee's just screaming at you like, you're done. And then the next day I'm spending Sunday just icing my knees so I can go back to work on Monday. So, and I would like to bowl more. That's always been fun anytime I go and do that, but it's just few and far between anytime going actually get group people together, or even two people for that matter. But
I wouldn't call it a hobby. It's why I didn't listen earlier, but I still play paintball pretty regular.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big target though,
Right.
so it's kind of a tough game.
The bunkers, the short ones are too small.
Yeah, no, I have we play in the woods, man. We're in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
We got woods to play in. It's
Yeah.
a little
Same here
bit
in Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a BT custom that's all custom, even more customized and loaded out, and it's a pretty good time. What about you, Triple B?
Well, going back to what Eddie and Nope says, like something in the past would be like I would like to snowboard and bowl more. I think bowling would be something I would be definitely digging into, and maybe even doing some more drawing and some pretty much inking is what I have like fun doing. Is I'll like to trace a cover and then go and like get a copy of my trace and then actually throw ink to it, which is way fun, but it's so time consuming. That would be awesome. But like a hobby that I've never done, I would like to do some photographing, actually doing, my nephew is really big in that and got some really nice cameras and does some really good photographing photos and stuff. I would like to do models for sure. So I would like to get in and photograph some female models for sure. There you go. And that would be amazing as hell. And get into that industry as a hobby. So yeah, I mean, when you brought up that question, I think that's one thing that came to mind. Like, yeah, let's do that. Because my mom has when she was still alive, she had some really nice photos, and that's what she did. And like, she would blow them up and frame them. And so, that's something kind of that runs in my genes. So yeah, it'd be pretty sweet.
John Stout said he'd like to be able to draw for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can draw on a computer. I can't draw on paper, which is weird. For me, I like golf. What you guys are saying is I like the idea of being able to play a sport again. I played softball until I broke my foot, and Jay knows about the foot. It's bad. But I played I played softball for a lot of years, maybe another sport. I can't bowl because of arthritis and other things, which sucks. And I'm top heavy, so I can't snowboard. Like, I've tried to snowboard. It's always a lot less fun falling down the mountain than it is just staying in the lodge and talking to people. So that was never my thing. For me, at this point, I think for me, the hobby that I would most like to pick up would be something low impact, maybe like fishing or something, but I'm not an outdoor cat. So, crazy idea. I want to learn to bake bread. That was the one thing I didn't do during the pandemic, right? I would like to learn I can cook anything with fire, right? Especially meat, but I would like to learn how to use the oven properly, right? Like, I can use the oven if I'm gonna make a pizza, but like, how to do all the different things that my fancy ass oven will do. Like, there's a lot of buttons that I've never used. So like, how do I make cookies? How do I make bread? I go to the Amish, they can seem to do it without electricity. What the hell? Like,
homemade bread's so good though too.
Thankfully, that's one of my wife's hobbies. Is she's obsessed with making bread, and I get the benefit of that, trying her different recipes. Hey, try it all, no problem. I'll try any of them.
So again, I wanted to do a kind of a lighter show. This show has gotten a little inside baseball lately for me. Talking about stuff inside the industry, and we all make what's happening in comics so much a part of our personality that, like, we're all a lot deeper. We all do a lot more stuff, right? Whether it's Triple B talking about the stuff he does as a dad, and Nope with his outdoorsman and mechanic stuff, and Ed like keeping people from dying from tornadoes. Like, Jay cutting guys open with a chainsaw gun. Like, by the way, guys, Jay is underselling his hobbies. He has a dog that is a full-time hobby.
That is true.
A Han Puppo is a full-time hobby.
That is true.
But like I said, it's we all are so much deeper than just the comic book stuff, and I think that's part of what makes our community so interesting. Right? Like, everybody here comes from a different place and a different background and a different set of circumstances, and comic books are what bring us together as a uniting point. But having other things that are interesting now, like, okay, Triple B wants to talk to me about smoking a pork butt. Well, I can talk to him about that. Or, Nope and I want to talk about, wrenching on cars. I'm a little bit handy. I'm not a big mechanic, but I'm a little bit handy. Grandfather was a general contractor, so we can talk about woodworking. Ed and I went to meteorology school, like, when I worked in radio. So it's like, it's one of those things is that we all have so much more in common than just comic books. So knowing that your community is more than just the thing that unites you is really interesting. I see you guys having chats in here about books and about other things, like in the chat so often, and you guys are talking about shows you're watching. And so that was kind of the point of this show, right? It was just to kind of be like, hey, we all do more than just look at pretty pictures in books or look at sexy ladies on the cover of books or, talk about collars, although we all like to talk about those. So, guys, I want to thank you all for being here. And actually, if everybody on the show could hang out for just a second after we end the show, I want to talk to you real quick. But shout out to everybody for being in the chat. Like I said, this was a lighter show. Stay tuned tomorrow. Miss Jen is here with What's in the Box. The Geek Chat is here with their reviews. They're going to keep talking about Daredevil and some other stuff. And Mel and Mog are back tomorrow night with a great sketch-up show. Friday, I am hosting Order Up. Matthias is at a convention. So I will have Torma from Oni Press on with me. And we will be talking, I'm guessing we'll be talking some very different things that Matthias talks about, which is fine and good, but we'll still be talking about all the great books coming out. Nikki's art show on Friday. I don't know what he's doing yet, but he will have some killer stuff. And then Nancy, guys, Nancy's show on Friday night. Friday Night Live with Nancy McCann for Comics Unlimited is the fastest growing show on the EXP right now. So if you're not paying attention to that show, tune in. She has great books. Nancy's been doing this since most of us were born. I'm not going to call out Ed for being old, but since most of us were born.
Nice one, Kyle.
Yeah, it's cool, man. No, but it's this idea. Nancy's been doing this forever. She's met everybody. She was Jim Lee's LCS for a while. Like, Nancy has killer stories and killer product. So make sure you tune in for that show. An announcement that I will make right now. I am doing a live sale on Sunday.
Oh.
Here on the EXP. I think Henri is maybe going to come on with me, but if not, no big deal. But we are going to do a live from Cleveland. It's Friday night. We are doing a live show here on Sunday. I am doing $5 and $10 trades, as well as maybe some key books. So make sure you tune in for that on Sunday. Monday, we will be back with Comic Collectibles and Best Coast Comics. I want to also mention April 7th. New York Times bestselling author of Bird Box, Josh Mallerman. Sorry.
There you go.
I'm just used to calling him Josh. Josh Mallerman will be here talking about his first comic project, which is going live on Kickstarter in April, along with his co-creator, Dirk Manning. So they will be joining us Monday, April 7th for Talking Shop, part of the new format for Talking Shop where it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, you need to make sure you tune in and watch it. And then we will be back with all of our other shows next week. Stay tuned. There will be some uploads to YouTube coming soon that you might want to watch. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you next time.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.